Hey everybody, I have this bit of a explanation about facts versus opinions in gaming, specifically ASL, but it could be any game. I'm directing this towards the ASL crowd though. And then how data is represented, and when you represent data, how it can be interpreted differently and how that changes your perspective of how things are. I'm going to explain how vassal data for vehicles or anything is different from the real game. Then I'm going to talk about Riffraff and what I think about that. So let's get started. Okay. So facts versus opinions. Apparently, I had a user come in and start talking to me, an anonymous user, by the way, who could not, his real name could not be traced, his or her real name could not be traced to their YouTube channel, so I don't know who they are. Okay. Now, this is very common in game forums, BGG, Game Squad, things like that. All right, we see this all the time. So somebody came into one of my channel, my videos, made some comments, indicated that they're all in favor of Bling because it helps them play the game, and that they exclusively play on Vassal. So my response to that was, well, I understand your opinion here on this matter. That's a personal preference. However, uh, you don't really know what the real game is because you're playing exclusively on Vassal. Those were their words. I'm going to say their, but it's probably a he. That was their wording. And they said it was something that they do. So my response was, well, you're missing out if you don't play the real game because it's different. And it is different. And I'm going to establish how it is different here shortly. Now, that is a fact. Now, he came back at me saying that this is just an opinion, and, opinions are just what they are. The usual sort of chat room blather, and that's what I call it. When somebody comes back to you, rather than acknowledging your view, they've got to go ahead and somehow contend that you're wrong. This is a sort of brinksmanship that occurs in forums like BGG or even worse, Game Squad, where you have a cast of characters there that I'll talk about at some other point in time. But here, uh, this kind of brinksmanship doesn't work very well in YouTube channels because YouTube channels are different. Although they're overseen by, uh, for example, YouTube, the fact is, I'm the owner of the channel. Anybody's the owner of their own channel, and they can decide what comments are going to be made or kept or responded to. And so there's a big difference when you come in here spreading false information under anonymous names and won't stand up to who you really are compared to me, who's making videos. I'm real. Everybody knows my name. Okay, yeah, I have a nickname, Hothead Thundermouth, but this is Mark Hanna's channel, and everybody knows it. So that's where I'm going to talk about riffraff a little bit later and what that really means to me. So, why is it a fact that Vassal is not the same as the real game? Uh, and it's different in substantial ways. Okay, so here we have a scenario I'm playing, actually, penny packets. Kind of an interesting scenario, really. And one of the things that we actually did before I get started, this is sort of an aside, but I was able to convince my opponent who loves the bling. Okay, he just loves this bling. All right, so he's got the usual uh, propaganda here for ASLplayers.net. Don't forget, this is ASLplayers.net who did this particular blog, bling blong thing. Okay. It's very popular. People seem to think that it's necessary to play. It's absolutely not necessary to play. But one of the things I said to this individual, I said, look, get this data off of the map and put it in the casualties bin. And I'll show you what I'm talking about when it shows up. It takes a little while to populate, but there we are. There's all the data for all the different vehicles, and I managed to squeeze it all into the casualties bin. And it's quite nice, really, because what's happened here, I don't think this is the right one because it's not all the way showing. I think it's because my video is cutting it off. But this shows all the data that this individual likes to have at his fingertips rather than looking at the Chapter H book. The scenario special rules are in here because this particular individual doesn't want to have a scenario card in front of them. That's too much trouble, apparently. I'm not trying to make fun of this. I'm just saying, look, here it is now. I don't have to look at it anymore. It's in the casualties bin. So, all right, so what you say, and I say the same. So what? Well, I'm going to show you why this matters. Now, here is a vassal counter. You can see it. It's right there. Okay, we all know what it looks like. And for the most part, I don't know if you'll be able to focus in on that. Probably not. Now, you won't be able to see it, but a real counter, okay, looks like that. The front of a real counter doesn't look that much different than a vassal counter. But in vassal, though, instead of having the information on the back, which is the only thing that you actually see, you have to right click and show the information. There it is. Okay. And that's slightly different. But okay, let's just say it's close enough to make the game similar. Probably. But see, these things start adding up. Now, if you right click on this, look at all the stuff that you get to see. When you're playing a real game of ASL, you do not get a movement trail on the map. There are no movement trails. You got to remember, or you got to write down, you got to remember where you started, and you have to do some more mental gymnastics to play the game properly on the board. It's a harder game to play. Okay, that's just one of them. There are no movement trails. Okay, there. Okay, prep hip. Okay, there is no hip button where you still get to see the unit and your enemy doesn't. This is not true when you play the real game. Okay, you get to take advantage of this information. You won't have to refer back to it. You won't have to remember it. If the enemy sees you when you're playing the real game, they'll see you looking for your hip information and they might think that, oh, somewhere around here there's a hip unit. You don't have to do that. When you're playing Vassal, it's much easier to fool the opponent with this electronic hipping. So the game is different. That is a fact. This is not an opinion, it's a fact. It's data representation is completely different. Take a look at this. Okay. One of the things you can do is do some bad things. You can click on an MA Malf and it will blot out the caliber of your weapon and say it's malfed. All right, well, I find that slightly annoying because I still like to look at the caliber of my weapon. I don't always recognize exactly what these tanks are. Okay, so one of the things that you can do when you play the real game is you don't have to do that. Just put a Malf next to it or underneath it. Um, and then you know that the main armament is malfunctioned. All right. Same for this little AAMG symbol here, which I find, let's not use that color for the circles. Let's use red. Okay, so if you click on a button, you can turn on the AAMG, and this is to represent that it's malfunctioned. Okay, but at this zoom level, this is not the ideal zoom level for Vassal. You really want to be scanned out a little bit more. In fact, if you're playing the real game, you're going to see the whole map in front of you. The real game's different in that sense too, because you see more of the big map up close. And the way you're actually facing in this game, most likely the Americans would be sitting on this side of the map and the Germans over here. But that's a little bit difficult to set up, or the player may not have thought about that. Different. It's a different game. All right. I'll remember all these things are adding up. I'm not trying to say that each of these individually make a big difference. But overall, Vassal is easier to play. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for ASL being easier to play. This isn't about that. This is about stipulating that the real game is different than the existing game. Now, this malfunction thing, there's another factor associated with this. If we take a look at the malfunction rules, there it is right there. I've highlighted the key information down here. Okay, per the rule book, if you're going to play by the rules, a gun, main armament, side armament, or MG malfunction counter is placed on the vehicle until the weapon is repaired. That's the rule. Okay. I know that sounds a little bit like so what, but there is no rule for using, oops, sorry. There is no rule here for using this. Let me clear off the circle. We don't have any recourse here to right click on this. What's going on here? Let me pause this for a second. All right, we don't have any recourse to right click on a real counter and do all these fancy bad things to calculate the CVP automatically. Who said that that's a good idea? Maybe we should tabulate it normally. The old way you do it is you write it on a piece of paper. All right. This is how I learned the game for 20 years. This game existed a long time before Vassal started making it easier to play. And Vassal is not exactly the same game. It is simply not. All right. There are factors that are easier. Here's another thing. We can go in here and change these boards. There they are. Let's see. Pick new boards. And I can go in here and do terrain SSR. I'm going to move this over because I'm going to want you to watch hex B1 over here and this building. Okay. I'm going to change a couple of things with the terrain SSR here. Excuse me. Let me try that again. It's a little bit tricky trying to remember all these control systems here. All right. So we're going to change the terrain SSR. And I'm going to change this to PTO terrain dense jungle. And I'm going to change buildings to be of construction all stone. Apply those changes, click done, and hit OK, and watch how the map changes. See, the map has changed? All right. Great. Makes it easier to play. But if you're playing the real game, the map does not change. You have to remember that all buildings are stone. You have to remember that dense jungle is inherent terrain. Different game. All right. The rules are different. Okay. In the rules system, you have to use markers like this. You don't get to use fancy little, cute little clicky dingy things. All right. To make it easier. Now, again, making the game easier and more accessible, that's a good thing. The fact is, though, that it's a different game. All right. The opinion is that it's a good thing. And don't come in here and try to tell me, though, that Vassal is the same as the real game. It's not. There are definitely differences between the two. Just like there's difference between playing a regular ASL, live Vassal versus PBEM. PBEM has its own set of behaviors and criteria that they don't even allow it on the area ranking. And I've already made the statement, which of course won't be listened to because it's not the popular opinion. I don't always go for the most popular opinion. I like to go for the most truthful opinion. In my opinion, and I think it's more truthful, is if the game's different enough, and I think it is, Vassal and regular ASL should have their own rating system, their own ELOs, if you will. You play all Vassal exclusively, as according to this guy he does, then he doesn't get to play his games on the ELO for the real game because the real game is harder. I really believe that to be true. However, I don't have any scientific evidence to back that up, but I think from a logical standpoint, I think people would probably agree with that. All right. However, I don't think a lot of people always agree with me. I'm sort of one of those characters that your first guess with some of the people that I know their first inclination is to disagree with me. That's fine. That's just how it is. Right, so let's move forward here. All right, let's go back to my little table. Right, as I was mentioning to you before, oh, it looks like I have some things here. So data representation, this is what I've just shown you is the ASL version of data representation and how it can affect your perception of reality. Let's look at another one. All right. Let's look at this hockey stick graph. People will probably be familiar with this if you follow the global warming arguments. They call this the hockey stick graph because it demonstrates the potential rise in temperature near the more modern era. And it's focused in on the last 1,000 years of climate. Okay. And that's a good piece of data, a chunk of data to analyze and say, wow, look at the climate. Looks like it's increasing in temperature. All right. And, if this data is accurate and consistent and valid, I'm not making any statements one way or the other about that, then I think one could reasonably conclude that. However, it's not really data about climate, is it? Because climate is a huge, massive topic that spans thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And if you look at the climate based on data from ice coring and other sources, we can then, instead of looking at this chart, we can look at the glacial, interglacial cycles for the past 500,000 years or so. And well, looky here, if we take a look at only the last 1,000 years over here, here's the last 1,000 years, maybe. Looks pretty stable, doesn't it? Compared to the massive fluctuations over the years, you'll notice that even though there's a lot of alarming issues related to the temperature going up, average temperature 150,000 years ago, 350,000 years ago was roughly 9 degrees C. That's over 18 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than it is now. Okay. Human beings have existed for 1 million years. From what I understand, Homo sapiens is the age of human. So this data gives you an entirely different perspective. And this data is not presented when looking at the global warming arguments because this data does not support any danger from global warming, even if it is warming. Doesn't look like the world's going to end based on this graph. Okay. Now, this is not a video about global warming. This is a video to show how the representation of data will affect your perception of reality. That's all. All right. So, getting back into the last part of this. All right, the last part is the riffraff part. My riffraff rant, if you will. All right, so why am I going on to a riffraff rant here? Well, because we have a lot of people who are fake, and especially people who come from, and I've come from there too, and I've learned my lessons the hard way. Two is that in chat forums like BGG, excuse me, or Game Squad, people come in and everyone thinks it's necessary, and that includes me, to create a cute little screen name. All right. But what I do and what others do is either they use a real name somewhere so people know who you really are. However, there are other people in these forums who come in anonymously. Uh, they don't want to tell us what their real name is. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I'll get to that in a minute. But so they come in, make their comments, jab at people a little bit. Over on BGG, if you jab too hard, whether you're hiding your real name or not, you will get reported. Same thing can happen over on Game Squad. And moderators make these decisions. However, the moderators are also biased depending on who they know. They may know who this hidden person is, and you don't. There's a lot of shenanigans that go on. So here's the thing. When you come over to YouTube and make your own videos, you are the moderator. And one of the things that attracted me to getting away from the chat room environment, which I still get sucked into from time to time, but I always find myself launching my way out of it, is I get tired of this brinksmanship that goes on between people who don't represent who they really are. You make a valid point, you're a real person, your real name's there, and they come and make a straw man argument or nitpick at something that's not really important just to uh, be argumentative. I don't know. I guess they get their jollies out of doing this sort of thing. I think if you're going to do that, you should at least do it with your real name. But there's people who don't. And that's how the chat rooms are set up. That's how BGG is set up. That's how the other forums are set up. And that's fine. But YouTube's not set up like that. If you come into my channel and you come in an anonymous name, okay, I had somebody come in, let's just say it was Atomic 55566 or something like that. Um, Representing probably who knows that he's 66 years old or was born in 1966. Who knows? Who knows? Nobody actually cares, really, where you come up with these pet names. I mean, you just do it for your own amusement, really. Okay. So, but he comes in and starts, first of all, saying, well, I only play exclusively Vassal, and this is why I like the bling. And I said, well, if you play only exclusively Vassal, then you don't know what the real game's like compared to it. And then he started taking issue with me sharing opinions and not facts. So part of the first part of this video was showing the difference between opinions and facts. And what I was doing was showing facts to this person. And then he continued to get argumentative. And I deleted a bunch of his ridiculous posts because there was no point in continuing an argument with someone who doesn't represent themselves as real. Okay, I'm here. I'm real. You see me. Okay, I am presenting my channel as me. If you're going to be an authentic person, you got to be who you are. You cannot hide behind anonymous screen names and then get all offended. Okay, uh, that I've insulted you or challenged you or whatever it is that you don't like. Where am I? Here they are. That's right. Gotta put my butt hurt glasses on here. Okay. I don't care if your feelings are hurt. All right. You should be an authentic person if you come in and talk to me. If you have something that you don't like in my video, make a counter video. Put your face up on YouTube, put your real name up there, and respond. All right. That would be the way to handle it. Don't come in with some fake screen name and act like some kind of a expert. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. Look at this definition of riffraff. If you refer to a group of people as riffraff, or a single person, I suppose, you disapprove of them because you think they are not respectable. That's right. I don't think it's respectable to come in under an anonymous screen name and start chafing at the creator. I'm going to chafe at me, go ahead, but I need to know who you are. Or you will be uh, canceled from my channel. Okay, that's it. And here's the key point. Riffraff are less of a problem than the price for keeping them out. Okay? So, out. Keep out the riffraff. The cost is not very much to me. And when this person came back and said, I'm sorry, I can't interact with you anymore, it's like, I don't want to interact with you. That's why I deleted all your junk and your nonsense commentary. Uh, you know, it was undesirable commentary. It was not up to the standards of what I want to see on my channel. And it's edited and it gets the heave ho, right? Anonymous people, okay, are, in my opinion, uh, I've never liked this part of BGG, this part of other forums where people don't have to identify who they are to everybody they're talking to. And so, in my opinion, they're similar to someone like this. And with this person telling you to stop pollution or stop the genocide or whatever it is they think they're talking about, okay, then they put masks on, hats on, wear shawls around their face. This is what they're really saying to me. Stop and go anonymous. By being anonymous, I can avoid intelligence, critical thinking, and compelling arguments. Who needs that when I can be a jerk instead? That's my opinion about that. So here you have some cowardly people anonymously wrapping themselves up. I guess they think that they're being cool because, that way nobody knows who they are. Probably their parents, so the parents won't cut them off. But I don't want to get too deep into possible analogies here of what's going on in reality right now. All right, you want to be part of this kind of people? Is that what you want? Then go around with your anonymous screen names. But you're not going to be hanging out for very long on my channel until I find out who you are, or you're civil and you have a civil debate. Uh, and that's just how it is. So, like it or not, I'm Marcana, Hothead Thundermouth, unapologetic, uncensored, and psychologically immune to social media control. Good day.